This is the Dark Entertainment Network. I am Rose Noir, your underground icon. The stories you are about to hear aren't fiction. They're buried truths, redacted histories, and the kind of silence that screams. This channel was demonetized for telling them. No ads, no sponsors, just the archives and us. Welcome, dear fiends, to the den. Hello, dear fiends of the den. I am Rose Noir back with more haunted history of Hollywood. We skipped it last week, so I'm going to bring you some amazing history from the golden age of Hollywood. If you remember, I talked about William Randolph Hearst and his mistress, who had a lot of trouble in Hollywood, Marion Davies. Well, they were involved in scandals. And one of the scandals was a death on William Randolph Hearst's yacht. I never got to the full story, so let's dive in because it is good. In my episode about Marion Davies, I talked about how her career really never recovered from this scandal, but I never got to the crux of the scandal. Now, there's always something with a yacht in Hollywood. And I wonder if this is where the whole yacht girl thing started. We never know. But in the mid 20s, Hollywood was still learning how to whisper. And when Thomas Ince boarded the yacht Oneida in November of 1924, he was a mogul, a pioneer, and the so-called father of the Western. That is my father's favorite genre of movie. But by the time the Oneida docked, Ince was dead. And the silence that followed was louder than any studio gossip. Thomas Ince was not just a simple producer or the father of Westerns. We wouldn't have John Wayne if it wasn't for Thomas Ince. And John Wayne has a great cookbook, by the way. So Thomas Ince was also the architect of Hollywood's studio system. So this is the system that did control all the actors and actresses, their images, their marriages, the lavender marriages, all of that. And Thomas Ince built Inceville, revolutionized production with shooting scripts, and helped invent the five-reel feature. And on the night of his death, he was celebrating his 44th birthday and a rumored business deal with media tycoon William Randolph Hearst. And now, when I say William Randolph Hearst was a mogul, he owned so much that I have not compiled a full extensive list. But Hearst started with the newspaper, the San Francisco Examiner, and expanded to own over 30 newspapers, including New York Journal, Los Angeles Examiner, Chicago Herald Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Now, his papers were often known for sensationalist yellow journalism. So this blended scandal, crime, and political bias to drive circulation. Now, he launched many magazines and acquired major titles, which still exist today, like Cosmopolitan, Good Housekeeping, Town and Country, Harper's Bazaar, and Esquire. And he owned over 26 television and radio stations and had 50% ownership of the A&E networks, including the History Channel, Lifetime, and Crime and Investigation. He also had a huge portfolio of real estate and art with properties across California and New York, including a Manhattan penthouse and a mansion in Beverly Hills. And he founded Cosmopolitan Pictures, producing films primarily to showcase his mistress, Marion Davies. And he used his empire to promote her career relentlessly. And this is why she wasn't so well accepted in Hollywood, because people felt she was handed everything by her billionaire, well, would be billionaire now, but millionaire a century ago boyfriend. So going back to November of 1924, we have the 44th birthday of Thomas Ince. So he attends this party on the Oneida owned by William Randolph Hearst. Marion Davies is also there, but so is Charlie Chaplin. And this is Ince's rumored rival. Now, Charlie Chaplin, as we know, has his own issues. And in attendance is Luella Parsons, the gossip columnist who mysteriously gained a lifetime contract with Hearst's papers, all of them, shortly after this incident. So I find that really interesting because the yellow journalism, the sensationalism, the gossip columnist gets a lifetime contract for being at this party where Thomas Ince died. So here's the official story. Ince reportedly suffered acute indigestion and was rushed ashore and died days later from angina pectoris. Except his body was cremated quickly and there was no autopsy and no investigation, just a press release and a closed casket. And Hollywood was not buying it. So there were all these rumors, and some say Hearst mistook Ince for Chaplin and shot him in a jealous rage. Oh, so it wasn't Chaplin and Ince that were rivals. It was Chaplin and Hearst that were rivals. So Hearst allegedly, in this rumor, mistook Thomas Ince for Charlie Chaplin and shot Thomas Ince, thinking what? That Chaplin and or Ince was having an affair with his mistress Marion Davies. That could be it. Others claim Ince was poisoned by bootleg liquor. That's pretty big in the 20s, but he was at a party with other people that didn't die, so that doesn't sound like a lasting theory. Now, the most enduring theory throughout Hollywood is that Ince saw something he shouldn't have, perhaps an affair, perhaps a confrontation, and paid the price. But again, he was a high powered producer. But William Randolph Hearst was more high powered. And if it's true that there was a shooting that night, of course, William Randolph Hearst would get away with it. We see people getting away with things right now as we speak. Oh, history repeating itself a century later. Now, Luella Parsons, the gossip columnist who was allegedly on board, never wrote a word about the incident, and her sudden promotion raised eyebrows, and Hearst controlled the press. So the story vanished so quickly. Now, Ince's death became Hollywood's first major cover up, and it set the tone for decades of studio silence. And he created the studio system. So it's like they created another system of silence after his death. They also expanded on fixer culture and the art of burying scandal beneath contracts and things like cremation or all the other stories that they come up with, these PR stories. Now, Ince built the system, but Hearst owned the headlines. Now, somewhere in between this is the truth. but we'll absolutely never find it out because the more I look, the less I find. But this is a really interesting part of Hollywood history, and I will link the Marion Davies and Charlie Chaplin episodes in the description. And remember, tomorrow, in remembrance of 9/11, there will be no episode in the den. If you didn't know, my husband is a 9/11 World Trade Center first responder. So we will be solemnly spending the day. You will see small updates here and there, but not a full podcast. So thank you all for joining me in the den. Don't forget, because I bring you the truth, the den has been demonetized, and it's a signal from the shadows. So if you'd like to support the dark entertainment and Rose Noir's investigations, you can do so by tipping the detective. The paypal.me link is in the bio. Again, thank you so much for joining me in the den. If you've got something to say, send me an email at welcometothedenpodcast@gmail.com.